Go ahead.
I remember that she was in the Hall of Fame. I remember eventually she got a place in the Hall of Fame because obviously she did a lot. She changed the women's wrestling business till this day because obviously she was better known for competing in intergender matches and obviously, winning the Intercontinental title and that. But do you think China's place in the Hall of Fame was well deserved?
Yeah, she's a trailblazer. Of course she deserves it. She's a trailblazer. I think what held that up was a complicated situation with her past relationship with Paul Levesque and with Vince McMahon and some issues there. And they're not the first person to hold up the Hall of Fame induction. It took Bruno a while, took Ultimate Warrior a while. There's some people that leave with a bad taste or leave a bad taste, and that's just the nature of business. But at some point, they always seem to get it right, which I respect, and put their feelings aside and do the right thing. And, they did that with China, with Joni, and it was, I can't call her Joni because I never met her. But they did that with China, and, yeah, she was a trailblazer. She changed the entire, an entire part of this business. So, and she was as responsible for the success of D-Generation X and the success of the Attitude Era as anybody.
Yes.
That she made that group unique. So absolutely she deserved to be in the Hall of Fame.
The big one, you returned as a ring announcer for now Impact Wrestling, TNA at the time, at All Against Odds, where you worked with fellow ring announcer Jeremy Borash. Tell us more about that.
Well, what happened was Shane Douglas was doing backstage interviews, and Jeremy was doing ring announcing. Jeremy had been with them from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I got a call from Jeff Jarrett. Scott Moore, who ironically enough is now one of the executive vice presidents of Impact Wrestling.
That's right.
I go back, all the way. I go back to when I was 20 years old with him, and we still, I was just texting him a few minutes ago. So they needed somebody to fill that spot, and I lived an hour away, and so Scott went up to Jeff and said, "What about Penzer?" So Jeff called me. I'll never forget it. I was driving my kid to a birthday party at a bowling alley. I still remember where it is. All of the bowling alleys. No, the bowling alley is still open. Sorry, but
I know what you mean.
Jeff said, "You want to come in?" And I said, "What does it pay?" And he told me. And I said, "What do you need?" I said, "I have a company that I run, but I could get some time off as long as I could have access to my as long as you give me some time during a little bit of flexibility." Not while you're taping, but I may have to walk away at certain times to take a business call. When in between the production meeting and the TV tapings. And he was like, "All right." I said, he said, "Look, I don't know how long it's going to last. It may only last a week, but I just want to make clear to you that if Jeremy doesn't do well as doing the backstage stuff, or if we get replace him and get somebody else, that he's going back to ring announcing and you're going home." And I said, "I appreciate the opportunity." And I went and I thought maybe it might be a couple of weeks. And it turned out to be 5 years. And it was a blast. It was a ton of fun. Getting to hang out every time I was there with Mike Tenay and Don West. And they would have, we would sit in the conference room there at Universal, and they'd have various different people that would come by to talk for 30 minutes or so. We'd have Kevin Nash time and Jim Cornette time and Bubba Ray time and Jeff Jarrett time
and all those knockouts as well.
It was a ton of fun, and the money was pretty good considering I had a full-time gig.
Yeah.
And yeah, me and Jeremy, there's never any problem. I respect the hell out of him. He when the time came that Eric Bischoff and Jason Hervey came in and they decided to change the way backstage interviews were done, where Jason would just ask the question from behind the camera instead of somebody there holding a microphone. That they called me and they told me, "Look, you didn't do anything wrong, but we're gonna have to let you go." And I had totally understood. I was kind of disappointed because I just bought my wife a new car, and I wish they would have given me a heads up. I would have bought her such a nice car.
Aww.
But other than that, it was cool. And I've been brought back from time to time. Most recently, as a play-by-play guy with Scott Demore. Funny how the more things change, the more they stay the same. For the TNA special, we were supposed to do play-by-play, originally ring announce, but then it got moved to play-by-play for the pay-per-view. There's no place like home, but we all know that everything has gotten delayed and closed down.
Yeah, due to the COVID-19.
That didn't happen, but it was a blast to go back. And these last few weeks in Atlanta, you could hear me if you watch Impact Wrestling as the ring announcer. But it's been like, gravy. It's, I say, WCW got to live my dream. Everything else is gravy. So this is just gravy.
I used to call you
the opportunity to step back in.
I used to call you the Impact Wrestling version of Howard Finkel.
Well, that is absolutely a total honor, and I don't deserve to be called that because there's only one Howard Finkel, and there'll always only be one Howard Finkel.
Because you both got very good distinctive pronunciations when you introduce a match, etc.
I didn't really pay attention to his enunciations because I never wanted to be like him. I didn't want to be like Gary. I wanted to be me. You hear a lot of people back when Howard was big, and they'd go out and you wouldn't like Howard couldn't do every show, so they'd have a B show guy, and he'd sound exactly like Howard, and it's flattering, but be yourself. So
yes.
I never wanted to sound like Howard, but what I loved that Howard did, what I was fascinated with, was I used to get the Madison Square Garden network, and Howard would do the Madison Square Garden shows, and before the last match, which wasn't the main event, they put the main event on in the middle of the show. But before the last match, that mic would come down and microphone, and Howard Finkel would run down the show for next month at Madison Square Garden. And it was the most riveting thing on the television show to me. Now that I would I'd pretend I was Howard Finkel in Madison Square Garden doing the rundown for the next Madison Square Garden show. He just knew when to pause and when to, he'd finish it off and he'd be like, and next month, right here at Madison Square Garden, the WWF champion Bob Backlund will defend his title against, and he'd pause, and everybody would be on the edge of their seat. He'd say, Samoan number 2, let's be honest, who cares about that? Samoans are a tag team. Why are they in a world title match in the most famous building in the history of wrestling? But you would pop just because of the way Howard delivered it, even though on paper it was the drizzling shit. So
I'll tell you who is another powerful ring announcer, Lillian Garcia.
Yeah, well, Lillian was different. She was really the first woman. Mike McGurk did a little bit in the 80s, but Lillian was the first one to have it long term. She also was a hell of a singer, so she could sing the national anthem.
She once beat Howard Finkel in a tuxedo versus evening gown match.
Me and her?
I'm saying Lillian.
Or her and Howard.
Her and Howard, yeah. Lillian beat Howard in a tuxedo versus evening gown match, and it was quite hilarious, actually. Because obviously it was all scripted, but I couldn't look at Howard with his pink underpants. I was like, no, oh no.
Howard was a company guy, and Vince got a kick out of Howard doing silly things, and he worked in the office the whole time he was the ring announcing. So so he would be the guy to give out the plane tickets and book, coordinate between travel and talent relations.
Yeah.
So Vince would have him do all kinds of goofy stuff to make Vince laugh, and he would always go along and do it with a smile on his face, just happy to be there.
You left Impact in 2010, and that was when Christy Hemme took over you as Impact announcer. And you worked as an estate agent. I'll say that again. And you worked as an estate agent when you left, didn't you?
Yes, that's what I currently do, although in this current time that nobody could leave their house and nobody's supposed to be near each other, nobody's buying a house or selling a house. So I haven't done much real estate work lately, unfortunately. But I'm hoping, I became a realtor. My other company had kind of fallen apart due to the economy tanking in 2008 and 9, and just slowly but surely it became more of a seasonal company. So I had to find something to do. So somebody said, "Hey, you could sell anything. You've been doing it all your life. You should go sell real estate." I said, "Well, I'll try." and took the real estate classes, got my license, and the rest is history. And it's been pretty good. It's ups and downs. There's times that you don't make anything for a couple of months, but there's times you do really well, and you just have to put that money away. And for the slow times, and overall it evens out. But it's been brutal lately. The whole real estate market is pretty much dead. So I'm just here sitting home doing podcasts
and just chilling. That's what you're doing. And my final question to you, David, you returned to Impact Wrestling briefly in 2017 and you left shortly afterwards due to budget cuts. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, very similar to the first time I came. They needed a ring announcer. I lived down the road, 60 minutes down the road. They knew I could do the gig. And, the one thing about ring announcing is, if you could get a local ring announcer, but if they've never done television before, it's a whole other animal. You got the producer counting you down in one ear. You got the crowds. You got to make sure is keeping up.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening is Jeremy, who was doing the play-by-play, had to actually kind of also do the crowd, warming up the crowd throughout the night, because the local guys that they were looking to try to get a new one, they really weren't.
Jeffrey Scott,
didn't know how to do what they needed them to do. So So Scott Dilmore looked at Jeff Jarrett again, just like 5 years earlier or however long, and said, "Why don't we call Penzer?" And so Jeff called and said, "Scotty just recommended you, and you want to come back?" And I said, "Sure, I'd love to come back." And he said again, I've never had a contract in my entire career. At WCW, I was a employee of Turner Broadcasting. And everywhere else I've never had a contract. It's just been an agreement that when we're done, and we'll be done. So it was fun to go back there and work with them again. And then they had severe cost cutting for a while. And so they had to send me back to Tampa. And like I said, I'm still, I went up there and did the stuff in Atlanta that just recently aired, the last episode yesterday, I believe, in the U.S. on Axis. Not sure when it airs up your way, but that's my voice. I wasn't supposed to originally ring announce for Impact, but they grabbed me at the last minute and asked me if I'd do it, and I said sure. So, and you never know what the future may bring.
You don't indeed.
I stay in good relations with the talent, with the people, with Scott and the people in charge, and they know that they could count on me if they ever need me. So you never know what the future will bring, but that's how that happened, and you never know. Maybe you'll see me in the future.
You will indeed. David Penzer, thank you very much for joining me here on this edition.
No worries, my pleasure. I know it took us a while to make it happen. Both of us had issues.
How did you find it?
It's my pleasure. My pleasure to be here. I just want to take a minute to let everybody know I have a podcast called Sitting Ringside with David Penzer. It drops every Monday if you subscribe, and you can find them wherever podcasts are found. I look at it like when back in the day when we would drive from city to city, town to town. There was no cell phones, there was no internet, and at 2:00 in the morning there was really nothing to listen to on the radio but music. So we would tell stories. We would tell stories about being on the road and funny things that happened and how we broke in, just to pass the time away. So that's what I try to make it. I try to make it as hey. Me and whatever wrestler I have on this week, we're just telling stories like we're riding down the road from Atlanta to Charlotte, North Carolina, and so kind of take the fans into that atmosphere. And so far, so good. Knock on wood. We've been going about 2 years, and we're going strong. So if people want to listen, give it a listen. If they like it, please subscribe, spread the word. I really appreciate it, and it's called Sitting Ringside with David Penzer, wherever podcasts are found.
Lovely. Thank you very much, David. You take care now.
Yeah, you stay safe, man.
All the best. Bye, buddy.
Take care.